and welcome to the Gothic Unicorn and to my final spooky season video of 2022. Now, it's been a short spooky season obviously because of the upheaval in my life, moving house and everything else, but I'm not letting that stop me from decorating the doll's house. So I will actually be showing you my decorated doll's house towards the end of this video. However, I'm also going to be making another decoration and let's get on with it. The starring role in this decoration is going to go to one of these little guys. Now, these are the garland skeletons that are much loved, not only of me but of many other spooky miniaturists. I've actually really struggled to get them this year in the UK. They apparently had some in our pound shops, but my local one didn't have any. Or if they did, they went out as quick as they went in. And I'm not about to spend all my time hanging around trying to find out. So I went online and I managed to get these. Now, they're a bit unusual in their colouring, but it doesn't matter because I normally paint them anyway, so they look a bit more bone-like. And I'm not going to be using all of him today. I'm just going to be using one or two bits, but that's what I'm basing today's make about. And today I'm going to be making it look like this guy is coming out of the ground. Now, aside from my skeleton, the rest of my materials are going to be trash. I'm looking at using things that would end up in the recycling, and so I'm using cereal box board. Now, I'm going to stack it up. You could use thicker cardboard from shipping boxes if you preferred. I just like using this. I like the effects I can get with it, and I've got plenty of it, so that's what I'm using. Now, I'm basing my sizes on my doll's house and where I am going to put the piece. It's going in the basement of my doll's house, rather the external basement of my doll's house, so that is dictating my sizes. So I'm going to cut my food packaging to size, and I'll then explain how we're going to do this. To make my ground breaker, I think that's what you'd call it, I have got two pieces that are cut at 3.5 by 3.5. I have got 5 pieces that are cut even at 3 inches by 3 inches. And I have got 5 pieces that are cut at 2.5 inches by 2 inches. Now, this is going to be a stone slab to go on the top, and I am going to cut a cavity into probably 3 of my 3-inch squares that this will then cover, and at least one of his skeletal hands will be coming out of it. Might be one, might be both, I'm not decided yet. This is going to be really, really simple. You could turn the stone slab I'm going to do, you could turn it into a gravestone if you wanted. You could, of course, be a bit more creative than I am and make it look like he's coming out of the earth. That would take a little bit more work. Not undoable, but would take a little bit more work. But I'm going for something fairly simple today. So I'm going to find my craft knife and ruler. I cut all these with the paper cutter. It's far easier for doing regular shapes. And decide how big of a cavity I need and where I want it to where that's going to go. So that's my next step. I have sorted the bits out. I've stuck them together And as you can see, for my base pieces, I've actually done a bit of trimming. I rounded off the corners on the smaller pieces, and then I've sort of made the bigger piece more natural. Well, you don't tend to get straight edges in nature, so I've sort of roughed it up a bit just with my scissors. And then the stone piece that will go on top has also been glued together. What I did while I was on is I applied glue around all my edges, and it just means that when I paint it I'll get a smoother finish. And it also reinforces those edges, because that's where you start getting delamination. Yes, I know, it's a big word, but when you stick pieces together, you in effect are laminating them. So when they come apart, it's delamination. Now this, which will be a slab of stone, gets to stay squared off, and it's going to fit on the base like so. But I need to make a little bit that will prop it up, because the hand will be coming out something like so from the hole underneath. Now I'm going to paint everything I've got black first off, and then I'm going to figure out my angle, because I literally want just enough so that you can just see the skeletal arm coming out. And it is the arm's going to be bent a bit, it's not going to be sticking out straight like that. I'm going to bend the hand at the wrist. But then I can work out what sort of a wedge piece I need to make that stand up. So, next step, black paint to give it all its base coat, and then we're going to fix it together. The base painting is done, and I have made my little support for what will be my piece of stone. I've also painted my skeletal hand, and I've put it so that it will look sort of palm up towards anybody walking towards it. That's not 100% dry. Everything's not 100% dry, but I wanted to actually move on a little bit. So this is my base, obviously, and then I've got my piece of stone that's going to come on here like this, and this is going to be attached on here sort of like this. Now I will be disguising some of this. That's actually a bit on the big side looking at it, so I think I can cut it down. I actually made it blind, so to speak, so I'll cut that down, probably take a good chunk off that and just put a thinner wedge in there. So I will cut that down next, and then we'll see about how that fits. And that's going to be disguised, as I say, because the next step is going to be to start putting this together and then adding the sort of decorative elements to it. Now I'm going to go with some earth and then some autumn leaves, because it's the autumn, fall, and some dried, dead leaves is going to look quite effective. You could obviously do the entire thing to match the floor that you're going to put it on. It could be wooden if you were going to put this inside a house to look quite good, to make it look like you've got a trapdoor coming up. But that's my sort of take on it. So I'm going to cut this down and see if I can't get it to a more suitable angle. And yeah, I'll be back. With the little wedge cut down, I've glued it into place on what will be my stone slab. Now the stone slab, I'm still waiting for the edge to dry. I don't know why that bit won't dry, it's been wet for quite some time. That's going to be done grey for a stone effect, and then that is going to be stuck into place over my void. Now I'm going to leave the underneath and the space underneath black, but what I do want to do is I'm going to get a pencil and I'm going to mark sort of an edge along here and a little bit along here where I'm going to add my soil, just so that I know where I'm putting stuff. And then I'm going to obviously build it up around the back and down either side. I'm going to have to stick this in place before I paint it grey, I think, because that black bit won't dry quickly, and I need to get started on the actual textured bits. I'm afraid I'm really having trouble with my words today. As you may or may not know, I do have problems with my speaking, my speech at certain times when I'm feeling stressed and things like that, and obviously it's coming out today. So bear with me if I'm making less sense than normal. Anyway, try and get on with this. So I'm going to find a pencil and mark a line and start putting on some soil. Now for the soil, I'm using my usual tea leaves. I like the effect, it works. You can use coffee grounds mixed with glue. You can use real soil. It's oven dried, kiln dried. You can get it so that you know that there's nothing in it, and you can use that for artistic purposes. I just use this because we always seem to have split tea bags in this house, and you know, it means it doesn't go to waste. So I have begun putting my soil on with my line, and then if I put this in place, you can see that it sort of works, and pretty much everything else will be outside of the line of the stone slab. I can still get my hand in to put my little skeletal hand coming out there, which is great. And I think I may stick the skeleton hand in place now, because that is actually the hardest bit I'm going to have to put underneath there and underneath the hand. So it's going to be something like that, which you won't see. So what I am probably going to glue him down, and then I'm going to glue that in place, and then we'll get on with covering the base with tea leaves. And I will explain more about how I'm going to do my autumn leaves, because I have a plan. The soil is on. This took a while, but as you can see, it's actually quite effective. I've also painted the stone with a base coat of dark grey. I'm going to add some light grey over the top. I've got some of my tea soil on there. That will tidy up. But I'm going to put some of a lighter grey over the top, sort of sponge it over to give it a more realistically stone finish. But I put that on before I stuck it down, just to ensure I could actually get all the way around it without making a mess everywhere. In places I have piled the soil up against the step and against the edge of the stone, so that it looks fairly, I'm not going to say realistic, but it looks like there's actually something there. It's not just something stuck on the top. My next step is to put a protective coat onto the soil. I've had to actually leave this overnight to dry because you need that glue underneath to dry. You can use the modeller's technique, which is to spray on watered down PVA glue. I tend to just use a bit of Mod Podge if I'm in a hurry because it dries quite quickly, or I will paint on the watered down PVA. I'm probably going to use the Mod Podge today because I do want to get this done and I want to get it dry, and then I want to be able to add the finishing touches. So I'm going to get the Mod Podge out, put a bit over the top of this, and all it does is it just ensures that the soil, your texture pieces, actually stay in place. I think that's what it does. It also alters the colour a little bit on some of the flocking materials you get, so it goes from really being quite bright and garish to being a more subdued colour. That can be helpful, but in this case I just want to make sure that it doesn't go everywhere. While I waited for the Mod Podge to dry, and as you can probably see, the Mod Podge isn't yet dry, still white bits on there, I have added some extra paint to my stone slab. I've gone with the light grey and then with a little bit of sage green. I just think that adding a bit of green to it sort of adds depth, and it can sort of look a bit like something a bit mossy if you think of it that way. Now what I do want to say is it's only if you do the glue and sprinkle method of putting on something to make your soil that you need to add a fixing coat. If you go for the mixing your material with glue, which I know some people do with coffee grounds, this isn't so necessary. But when you use the glue on first, sprinkle the stuff on, push it in, let it dry, you do need to put something just to make sure that it doesn't keep falling off. But I'm quite pleased with how this is coming out. The fact that the Mod Podge is taking an age to dry aside, and yeah, it's looking pretty good, and it is just about ready for me to add the final touch, my leaves. At the beginning of this video I said I was going to be using trash materials for this, and indeed I am. Now obviously I've used the cereal box for the bulk of my piece, but I want some leaves, and I'm using some scrap bits of copier paper, printer paper. This in my case is the bits that are left around something when you print it. Printing things in miniature, there can be a lot of waste, so I keep the rest of that paper and I use it for gluing on, or when I want little bits to punch out. And that's what I've done for my leaves, and this little lid here is full of leaves, except it's not. Now I've only got 2 leaf punches that work in this sort of scale. I've got a sort of spray of 5 leaves, which is here, and I've got a little holly leaf spray there. Now I could cut them all by hand, but my hands would be in a right state because it takes forever to cut leaf shapes, which is why I tend to go with using as few as I possibly can, unless I can use something like these. However, what I have done, and if I pull out these, is I have pulled out a few other little shape punches. I've got a couple of different flower shapes. I've got some hearts in there, and then I've got some of the bits that are left over when you punch things. And all that I did is I got my little scraps of paper, which, as I say, is printer paper. It's just that ordinary thin paper that gets used for everything. So it could be, if you've got some letters or things like that that you want to put in the recycling and they're just made of ordinary plain paper, you could use it for this. Got my alcohol markers and I coloured patches of some various autumny colours, and then just got punching, and some of them have got different colours on them because they overlapped, and I don't care, because once I've done with these and I've scrunched them up a bit, you're not really going to be able to see much of any individual pieces. It's just that I wanted some that were sort of more pointy and jagged and things like that, that I've gone for different shapes. So those are my leaves. I've got quite a few in there. They keep going everywhere. I've prepped these well in advance because I was trying to figure out how I could do it. I know some people will get real autumn leaves, beautiful colours, and sit there and punch them out with the punches. I haven't got time for that, so I'm going to be using these. I have been adding the leaves to my scene, even though some of the Mod Podge still isn't dry, and I'm liking how it looks. I haven't really got a plan as to where the leaves are going to go. I've obviously put quite a few up this side to disguise the fact, hopefully, that there is a wedge in there to hold the stone up. My sort of thought is that it would actually be, if the skeleton was trying to get out, it would be his other hand that was pushing up against the stone. And then I just piled some in various places, trying to make it sort of look kind of random. I say kind of random because you can't really do truly random when you're actually doing anything, because it doesn't work like that. And all I've been doing is I've been pulling a couple of the leaves out of my pot at a time, sort of scrunching them up and sticking them into place. And again, you know, as I say, that is the sort of randomness of it, in that I am not picking them most of the time. If I've ended up with too many that are too much of the same colour, I will try and go for one of the other colours, because I've got oranges and I've got browns, or I'll go for a different shape, maybe swap one out for something a bit different. And all I'm doing is just sort of bundling them up together so it looks sort of about as natural as I'm going to get with something that is, quite frankly, unnatural. So that's all I'm doing, and I do actually really like how this is coming together. And what I might do, just to sort of carry on with the theme, is I might use the rest of my leaves and make some little pieces to fit near to this, just like a strip where there's some leaves. So I have literally just had that idea as I am sitting down to film this, so I haven't thought how I'm going to do it, but I think I'm going to find a bit of some kind of cardstock, because I don't want anything too thick. I've got some black cardstock somewhere, so I can probably do a little strip of black cardstock, stick on some leaves, and then I can put that against the house or something like that. And then it would actually make it look more like the leaves are supposed to be there. You see, these sort of ideas do occur, and as I always say, it's a very fluid way that I work. It's very rare that I have more than a vague idea of what my completed piece is going to be when I start filming something. I found some scrappy black cardstock rather, and I've made a couple of piles of leaves to go on my doll's house. I've done one so it looks like they've just blown up against something, and then I've done another so it looks like they've blown into a corner. Now, I use black cardstock because I knew I'd got some in my scraps box, but you could use packaging and paint it black, or paint it a colour to match your base, or you could use clear packaging if you've got some. Just allow a little bit longer for the glue to dry on that, because sometimes it can be a bit temperamental. But aside from that, I'm quite pleased with this week's little spooky make. I do like the fact that I've got this little hand sort of popping out from under the ground, and I like the leaves. It certainly adds a sort of autumnal touch. So that's today's make. I'm now going to decorate the doll's house for Halloween, and I'll finish the video with a little bit of footage of that. And here we have the doll's house, freshly decorated for spooky season 2022. Now, as you can see, aside from putting my eye plant on the balcony, I've gone with quite subdued on the front, lots of pumpkins. Might still add some more pumpkins if I find some that are suitable. I've got my spooky sign, and I've got one of my vulture flamingos, which appears to have lost its collar, if indeed the zombie version ever had one. It might just be a zombie flamingo, I'm not sure. And then going down, we've got my doormat, and we've got the stacked skulls. Now, also down here, but not quite so visible, we've got a skeletal flamingo, and we've got my little mummy in a coffin. So if somebody was to lean over, they'd get quite the surprise. The main area of decoration is down here on this side of the basement. As you can see, I've put my leaves in the corner, and they look really effective. I do like that. I've got my vulture little decorative piece. I've got my bluebells and my man-eating plant, and of course I've got my new skeleton emerging from the ground, which I'm really pleased with. It really fits well with my kind of aesthetic, and I'm really happy. I hope you've enjoyed this video and the others in my little spooky season series this year. If you have, please like, comment and subscribe, and maybe even ring that notification bell. I put videos up most weeks, normally on a Friday, but I never promise anything. Real life gets in the way sometimes of even the most dedicated miniaturist. However, until next time, bye.